Shouldn't you be getting ready?
I suppose. I'm not sweating it.
Are you nervous? Of course, if I were wearing someone as handsome as Charles, I'd be happy too.
He's all right, I guess.
All right? He's an Adonis. He's handsome, kind, and wonderful, and it doesn't hurt. He's got a great career.
You married him then.
What's the matter?
Can I tell you a secret? I'm not going to marry Charles.
What? Who are you marrying then?
Nobody.
I think all the guests at the wedding are going to be surprised.
They'll get over it. Life is better with a few surprises. That's the problem with most weddings these days anyway. There's no drama. It's a done deal. Will you take this man? Will you take this woman? And everybody always says, I do. What a snooze. This will give people something to talk about.
You're going to say no?
I'm not cruel. I'm just not going.
How can you not go to your own wedding? Your name's on the program.
You'll have to tell me all about it.
Mother's going to have a heart attack. Again! And what about Charles? He's mad about you.
He isn't that wonderful. He smells like cabbage.
He's Irish. They all smell like that.
I mean, what am I supposed to do? Have a baby and get boring?
Yes.
I'm not doing it. I have my whole life to live, and that doesn't include becoming Mrs. Boiled Cabbage and having 50 red-haired babies.
Where did you get 50 babies from? I thought you were just having one.
Once you start, they just keep coming.
You could have thought about all of this before you said yes to him.
Well, I changed my mind 30 seconds after I said yes.
Why didn't you just take it back?
I didn't want to hurt his feelings. I mean, what am I supposed to say? Oh, sorry. I thought you meant if I wanted to marinate the chicken. I have a problem with my ears, that's all.
This is ridiculous.
Marriage is a prison. Think about it. Once you're married, no one buys you flowers, no one takes you out to dances, and if a man wants to kiss you, he has to ask your husband for permission. Not me.
Kids around kissing people.
Well, too late, because that's what I've been doing. And let me tell you something, there are a number of good kissers out there. I haven't met all of them yet.
You have to go, Evelyn.
I'm so glad you see my point. I've already bought a train ticket.
Where?
New York City. New York is the bee's knees.
Why don't you just tell him you don't want to get married?
It's our wedding day. It's a little late for that. Now, the way I see it, there are a couple of good ways to go about this. I've been working on a nice suicide note.
Wait a minute. You don't think his fiancé suicide on his wedding day won't hurt his feelings?
You haven't read the note. It explains all that. I claim to have another husband in France.
What?
He's a count. We were married at 18. I fled to America to be away from him because he's a monster. So obviously I can't marry Charles because I'm already married, see? It's not his fault I'm killing myself. It checks out. We were in France 2 years ago on vacation. I could have slipped away, met a count, gotten married. Now all you have to say is that I mentioned it at the time.
Evelyn!
Come on. This is what sisters do. We help each other stage suicides. What are you going to do about a body? So here's my plan. You say I jumped off that cliff and washed out to sea.
You wrote a suicide note, walked to the cliff, and just jumped in, and I watched the entire time?
You'll have to work a little cry for this one.
I'm not an actress.
I tried to stop her. Oh, she was so beautiful when she did it. She said, don't cry. Oh, and this is where you could break down a little bit, like what happened is so terrible and awful at the same time. I couldn't stop her. She plunged into the icy water. The currents must have washed her body out to sea where we'll never find her. We can use the food for a wake.
You want me to go out in front of 100 people, break down into sobs, and lie about how your body was washed out to sea?
And then read my note? Please, Ginny. I would do this for you. We can tell Mother and Father later. Oh, they'll be so happy. Just imagine. I have something to tell you. Evelyn's alive! She's alive! They'll leap up and down. Mother's crying, tears of joy. Father's thanking God for this happiness. You don't want to deny them that, do you? One little fib, Ginny. That's all it is. Evelyn's dead. She washed out to sea, and the wedding is off. That's it.
Fine. I'll help you fake your death to get out of a wedding.
Yes, so make it beautiful. I want to have a glorious death.
I'll make certain of it.
Let's practice. You have to try these things a few times, otherwise no one's going to believe you.
No one's going to believe me anyway.
Tell you what, if you'd like, you can marry Charles after. He'll be so distraught after my death, he's likely to go for anything in a dress.
All right, we read this nonsense.
I'd appreciate it if you took my death seriously.
Dear world and beloved Charles, How can you call him beloved when you're leaving him at the altar?
You can't just launch into a letter. You have to introduce it. Now, tell the story of my tragic death.
Must I?
Yes. Oh, cry first. Ooh, very good. Can you get more of a choking sob in there? Like the grief is just so immense? Much better. Continue. People are beginning to wonder.
My dear friends, my sister Evelyn can't be here today because she tumbled from a cliff to her doom.
Oh, I like that.
I saw her fall. She had dressed herself in a burlap sack. Her hair, she must have rubbed cow manure on it.
Actually, I'd like you to mention how pretty I looked. If possible, and sadder that way. I don't want everyone to think I was crazy.
A crazed look in her eyes, as if she was fearful and insane. She hit the cliffside, which sent her cartwheeling to the abyss, spraying blood. From the turning waves below, a shark leapt up and snapped her in half. So she is dead. Good riddance, I say.
If I could offer some commentary on...
I'm grieving. She was a dear sister and had gotten plump recently, so I'm sure she provided that predator with a good meal. She left a note. I will read it. Dear world, and especially Charles. I'll add that she spelled the word especially wrong.
I did not!
By now you've learned of my tragic and beautiful death. I'm sorry I cannot be present to explain the reason for my suicide. First, dear Charles, I'm not who you believed I was. I'm married already. To a French peasant named Guillaume.
I believe it says count.
I'm altering it for believability. I met in a public restroom in Paris. He was a humble lover, but we fell in love in several minutes. I knew my parents would never approve of our love as he was 50 years my senior and hadn't even. So I kept our love a secret. And although he could only communicate in grunts and whistles with the happiest few hours of my life.
Will you stop?
Goodbye, cruel world, for the love between an illiterate, grunting French peasant and a clever American woman cannot be celebrated.
You're ruining my death.
You're not dead.
Read it the right way.
Too bad. Maybe you should go to your own wedding and read a suicide note yourself.
Maybe I will. Oh. Very clever, Ginny, very clever. But I am not about to show up to my own wedding to explain my death. That is not going to happen.
That's your choice. Although after I read the letter, Charles is going to be breathing a big sigh of relief. Dodged a bullet, as they say. It's a very revealing letter.
It's not going to work.
Fine.
Fine.
So you're still going to go?
100%. But first, let's plan my funeral. I want to have a big crowd.